Hello, I'm Penn, and today the focus is going to be set on identity. In today's world, and in the past, people have always struggled to express themselves. Whether it's because of what others think or uncertainty within yourself, it has always been an issue. To dive deeper into this topic, I'm using a variety of sources. The first being Autobiography Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. This novel focuses on Trevor and his mom, Trevor growing up during the heat of South African apartheid as a mixed child. Trevor had trouble defining his culture. He got along with both races, but was repeatedly put into situations where he had to choose between one another. This troubled and confused him, ultimately preventing him from expressing his true identity. This theme of identity is common in our world, even if people fail to recognize it. A quote I thought portrayed this theme well refers to the aftermath of when Trevor and his best friend Teddy stole from a nearby mall. The two were caught on security cameras, and Teddy was reprimanded. The cameras, though, which Trevor didn't realize until now, could only see in black and white. Since Trevor was mixed, he clearly didn't fit into the color scheme of the cameras, so the policeman classified him as white. So the camera classified him as white. But the policeman could see that the person sitting in front of him, getting interrogated, was clearly not white, so they crossed him off their list. The policeman in the quote confined Trevor into a singular group, as they're so used to doing. They labeled him as black, simply because he wasn't white, because this was their idea of race, a singular, one-dimensional classification. The idea of someone being mixed, split between two identities, was so unbelievable that it isn't even considered. This made Trevor feel, as he said in the quote, invisible, like he didn't belong. This issue of classification is not only alive in policemen, but in our society as a whole. To prove this, in the quote, Trevor says, "these people," referring to the singular policemen. I thought about this a little deeper and was pondering that why he do that. When someone uses the words "these people," they are more often than not referring to a large group of people, not a singular person or two people. So from this, I realized that Trevor is not only referring to the cops, but to a society of people who share these beliefs, who share these classifications against race. The overall message in this quote is not that policemen are bad because they are racist, but that when people are made out by society to conform to a certain group, as a result, they feel like they don't belong. They feel invisible. And I believe this message is very strong and can be portrayed in many different ways. Another being possibly images. In this painting, we see two hands clearly trying to break free of this wall. The reason is unknown, but we can see that the hands look very coarse and rough, as if they've been trying to break free for a long time. The wall also has many cracks and dents, which means that it is very old. It has been decaying, as if the wall has been in place for a very long period of time. This could be interpreted in many ways. I see this barrier as a sort of stereotype, a long put in place system or barrier that is set to restrict people from reaching their freedom, as this person trapped behind the wall is clearly not able to reach their freedoms, and in turn, not being able to access their personal identities. Finding and expressing your identities can be very challenging in our world, and this challenge is not only seen in images and books, but also in real people. A good example of this, as of recent, is the laws produced in Texas with their scope aimed at transgender children and their identities. An article by the Washington Post represents this issue by using a mother with a transgender daughter and analyzing the struggles they go through as law after law is passed against trans children. More specifically, the law with the most impact, which declares caring for a transgender child as child abuse. This law was introduced by Greg Abbott as a direct target to trans children and their families. Helping them get surgery, child abuse. Helping a transgender human in any way, shape, or form continue to be trans, child abuse. Even by being a bystander will get you investigated. With this law comes insecurity, fear, and crisis. And People now have to worry about things they really shouldn't have to as junior high or high schoolers. They are simply kids, and their identities are being held at the hands of others. Take Amber Briggle, for example, a mother of a trans daughter in Texas. Her daughter, Previously, her daughter led the life of any high schooler, organizing sleepovers, coordinating rides to extracurriculars, and whatnot. Usually, it's like raising any normal child in America, she says, except for this year. The Texas government is passing law after law attacking trans children, which all revolve around suppressing people from becoming trans or continuing to be trans. Amber says her daughter is afraid of things she shouldn't have to worry about, and that if you are transgender, that is your own identity, that is who you are, and it shouldn't change a thing. But in the eyes of Greg Abbott, it does. This act of restriction by Greg Abbott and the government of Texas is not focused it is not focused on preventing people from merely changing their genders, but restricting children from being themselves, from expressing themselves and finding their own identity. How would you feel if you were in that situation? In all three of these sources, we see many similarities. The largest and most obvious similarity in my eyes is that in each source there is something preventing someone from expressing themselves. In the first source, it is the stereotypes and expectations of race that doesn't let Trevor gain a sense of belonging. In the second, we see a physical wall, a barrier preventing a person from reaching their freedom. Lastly, we see a law specifically opposing transgender individuals from receiving help or support, which many of them rely on as they are so young, and ultimately stopping them from being themselves and expressing their identities. Although these similarities do portray an important message, there is also something to be said about the differences in each source. They are similar in what they represent, but they do it in different ways, with different ideas. For example, the quote in source number one shows Trevor struggling to find belonging and express his identity because of the expectations and prerequisite stereotypes of his society. In the second source, the image, it shows a person physically struggling to break free of a barrier that prevents him or her from finding their identity. Whereas in the third source, there's a government law put in place which prevents these children from finding their identity. They aren't being restricted by physical force or societal beliefs, but through threats and fear of punishment that come with breaking the law. All three of these images portray a struggle with identity and belonging, but their individual differences show the variety of struggle that is relevant in the world. Each person is different, handles things differently, and struggles differently. And there are infinite ways in which people can find or be prevented from finding their own identity. Now that we all, hopefully, understand this issue, you may be asking, what can we do about it? Well, there are many ways we can help people with their identity struggles, but probably not in the way you are expecting. You can't donate money or support a well-known organization, but the best thing you can do is monitor yourself and be understanding. Don't place expectations on someone based off what they look like. Be kind to everyone and do not impose your ideas on others, especially about race, culture, religion, or anything of that nature. And if you do recognize anyone facing stereotypes, prejudice, or anything of this nature, go out of your way to make that person feel comfortable. Do not let them be ruled by the opinion of others. Reassure them that their identity is theirs and only theirs. Thank you so much for listening.